everyone, it is Alex Killing97 here. Now I want to apologise for there being no Elder Scrolls lore videos in the past like 6 months. I have completely forgotten about it really, and I really shouldn't have done, and I'm really sorry for that. Instead of doing what I was doing, I was going around the provinces of Tamriel. I'm going to change, and I'm going to do a couple of contents for a little while, and I'm going to jump around the lore, not just do specific topics, I think. But if you have any suggestions that you want me to talk about, then feel free. I've also going to improve the series with hopefully just going to spend more time on it as well. And also I have written scripts now, so I won't be going through the whole things. So hopefully you enjoyed this part, guys. And if you want to provide any feedback, I'd be happy to read it and to take on board what you want to have to say. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Atmora is the bitterly cold continent north of Tamriel, the location of the Elder Scrolls games. It was the home place of man during the Mirific era, and tradition holds that it was from here, Atmora, that the first humans came to Tamriel. The name is a corrupted form of the Altmerist title, Altmora, a designation for the northernmost landmass inhabited by Mer, or as some would refer to them as elves. Atmora was the original homeland of the early Nords, who called themselves the Nede. The Nede are the ancestors of the Bretons, the Nords, and the Imperial races. Some of the Nede called Atmora the Land of Truth. An ancient creation myth says it was separated from Tamriel as a result of war many, many years ago. Early Nordic societies reflect of Atmoran society. Many Nordic customs were inherited from Atmora, and the continent has been highly influential on Tamriel. Atmorans were a seafaring people, much like modern-day Nords, but they purportedly had no knowledge of agriculture and survived off of hunting, a way of life which likely encouraged their purportedly ceaseless warfare. While they were considered one race, there is some suggestion of regionally distinct racial groups, such as the Sinew Longfolk, whose ruddy skin matched the dawn, as some would say, that inhabited the eastern edge of the continent of Atmora. The Atmoran settlers brought with them traditions such as naming ceremonies and their religion of animal worship. Of course, this was before the Dragon War, and the dragon culture still reigned. The dragon priests demanded tribute and set down laws and codes of the living that kept peace between dragons and men, and they were apparently much more benevolent in Atmora than the tyrannical priest kings that ruled in Tamriel. Ysgramor, considered the first human historian, is credited with developing a runic transcription of Nord speech based on Elvish principles, which could have a basis in Atmoran society. Ancient demons of Nordic culture, such as the Daedric prince Hermaeus Mora, first became threats in the continent of Atmora. The continent of Atmora is only known for its relationship with Tamriel. Ancient myths suggest that Auriel first brought the land under elven rule, but Shaw and others eventually led men to victory against their oppressors, overthrowing them. It is unknown when the Nede began to migrate to Tamriel, only that they came in waves over an extended period of time. The continent Tamriel served as a safety valve for people for whatever reason could not stay in Atmora. The last known major migration was during the era of the Atmoran king Ysgramor and his sons Ingol and Ilgar, along with many others who wished to flee the continent. They arrived in Tamriel, fleeing the civil war that was going on in Atmora in the late Mirific era, before the First Era had even begun. They met the current inhabitants of Skyrim, the Snow Elves, that would later become known as the Falmer. The two races lived in peace together for quite some time. However, soon the Snow Elves realized that the homeland would be under threat as the Nede population was rapidly increasing. The Nede that had arrived in Skyrim soon became the victims of a genocidal massacre from the Snow Elves, known as the Night of Tears, which was an attack where they burned the first Nede city in Skyrim that was known as Sarthal. Ysgramor and his two sons were the only survivors from that night. They fled back to the continent where they came from, Atmora, and assembled a massive army that was known as the 500 Companions, to reclaim their lands and seek vengeance upon the Snow Elves that had massacred their city. A massive navy was built to carry the 500 Companions across the Sea of Ghosts, back over to Skyrim. Ysgramor and his companions left Atmora and successfully established human dominance in modern-day Skyrim, which persists even to this day. They had beaten the Snow Elves to claim Skyrim, driving the Snow Elves down underground to live with the Dwemer. Atmora eventually experienced some sort of natural disaster, where the once green land was overcome by what some call the freezing, making it largely uninhabitable, even colder than it already was. This disaster began around the time of Ysgramor's migration to Tamriel in the late Mirific era. The last immigrant from Atmora in recorded history is Tiber Septim himself, who later became known as Talos, one of the 9 divines. To this current day, Atmora is uninhabited, as is gathered from expeditions there in the mid to late 3rd era, as all that was found was a place of permanent winter, with little life and no sign of human habitation. It's suspected that the land no longer supports any civilized life whatsoever. But what happened to the Nede that stayed in Atmora, some might ask? Well, the answer to that, apparently, is unknown.